want to take away our jobs. They want to transform this port into a playground. And we're here to let them know that it's going to take them walking over our dead bodies to give up this port.
This is about private corporate money. They said that they ain't gonna get no taxpayers' money because they want to own that. They want to take that from us. We not gonna have that. That's what we do. We ILWU. We fight.
Now you're talking about they're gonna create new jobs. Most of those jobs are non-union jobs. They're trying to take jobs that's been here before the A's. I'm an A's supporter. But you build that shit right over there in East Oakland, fulfill your promise that you told East Oakland you would do, and leave our fucking docks alone.
2011, I know that there are a lot of people here that remember this. A huge contingent of workers in the community marched over that bridge over there and shut this whole port down. The reason that those people, our brothers and sisters, gathered together and shut that port down, they didn't do that because they didn't like longshoremen. They didn't do that because they was mad at us. They did that because they were sending a message to this city and to our government about who this public land belongs to. This is not land for you to come and make all the jobs non-union and low-wage paying jobs. And just to say it like it is, that is exactly what building a stadium here is going to do. They're going to bring low-wage, non-union jobs here to replace union strong jobs. Now, the only thing we have as working people, the only weapon we have when we're fighting against our oppressors is our labor. Sometimes you got to have the courage. You got to have the grit. You got to have the fire to use that labor to send that message. When I say union, you say fight. Union. Fight. Union. Fight. When I say people, you say fight. People. Fight. People. Fight. When I say local, you say 10. Local. 10. Local. 10. Local. 10. 10. 10. Let's get ready to march, brothers and sisters.
The Port of Oakland is the third largest port on the West Coast. It's a key economic engine for Northern California. We need to preserve this place because it is, without the free flow of goods, our economy will be severely impacted. Good jobs, high-paying jobs, union jobs will be impacted. The free flow of transportation on our trucking lanes, the railroad, our turning circle here must be preserved. We have to keep it intact. And a ballpark here with residential condos and a giant hotel, there is no parking. There is no way to get in and out and still continue to operate. There are things called public nuisance laws. As soon as there's residents here, this noise, pollution, and dust and smoke that comes from the port will become an issue for these new residents, and it's sort of a genie let out the bottle. Once that genie's let out, there's no stopping it. We will not be able to continue to function in an efficient manner, and that will impact our business and take jobs out of Oakland and Northern California.
I mean, the impact to the Port of Oakland, to the seaport of Oakland, will be major. The Port of Oakland is currently the third busiest port on the West Coast. It is representative of heavy industry. And we think that when you place multi-million-dollar housing units adjacent to that kind of industry, you subject the industry to a myriad of complaints from neighbors. And so when we risk what is called deindustrialization, then the impact is immeasurable. Currently, there are about 28,000 jobs that are generated from the seaport. I'm not talking about the airport operations or the commercial side operations, but I'm talking about the seaport. And so all of those jobs will be at risk. 28,000 jobs represents 28,000 families, and that's a huge problem.
We directly hire and employ about 12,000 people. It's a very diverse group of folks that are direct hires. But from our members, we are primarily union employers, employ a direct set of highly skilled longshoremen, and they comprise one of the highest paid blue-collar unionized workforces in North America. Those jobs are highly sought after. We have a lot of competition for those positions. There's a lot of other direct jobs though that are impacted at the port that don't have directly to do with our terminals behind the fence line. And that is everything from truck drivers to warehousemen, transloaders, freight forwarders, everyone who's touching the cargo, moving a container. That's that total composition of approximately 12,000 different individuals. And then obviously there are a lot of induced and indirect jobs that are associated with all of those different economic activities, and those comprise about another 15,000 or so jobs throughout Northern California. It makes this really the premier and regional hub for economic development with respect to logistics in all of Northern California. That doesn't include all of the jobs associated with the actual cargo that we're moving. That's a very wide spectrum of economic activities. And in that regard, the Port of Oakland is basically facilitating about 500,000 jobs throughout California and reaching throughout the country. That is really the hallmark of the significance of the port. It's not just that you create local jobs and economic development impacts for your community, but you're really facilitating economic improvements and development across the entire country. The access to and from the Port of Oakland and to and from the terminal, and how the access issues will impede our traffic flow, create congestion, and ultimately potentially impact our competitiveness. The most obvious issue with Howard Terminal is access to the terminal itself. It sits directly on a Union Pacific rail line that also is the main line for the Capital Corridor. There's absolutely no question that if you want to have direct access to that site, you need to build vehicular grade separations. Those grade separations do not exist. When you have a railroad crossing at grade, then that means that the rail and the road are crossing on the exact same level. You have to wait for the train, the yard arms come down, block cars, and the challenge with that is that it creates a lot of risk for pedestrians and automobiles, but also for the railroad. You have fatalities, you have the unfortunate situation where accidents occur, and those are preventable if you grade separate it. The project itself right now contemplates having a bike and pedestrian overcrossing, but it doesn't contemplate any such overcrossings for vehicles. And with the amount of volume of traffic that we're talking about here, that's a real problem for the site. But if you want to maintain consistent access to that site, those need to be built. There are two main access roads to Howard Terminal, and in our conversations with the Union Pacific Railroad, they have made it very clear to the aides, to the port, and to the city that they need to have those vehicular grade separations in place if you're going to be building a stadium and 3,000 units of housing and put a hotel on the other side. So there's only one side which is land side, and that side is directly constricted by those railroad tracks. As far as we know, there's no plans for any type of accommodation for mass transit other than the potential for the A's gondola or some additional bus service.
And let's stop saying there will be a BART station. BART has already said no, rather strongly.
But in the supply chain, those things do become apparent over time. Because if you consistently have an extra 75 minutes on your trip back and forth between the Port of Oakland and an ag exporter in the Central Valley, over time, that eats away at your ability to move a certain number of containers. You might have to pay more for your trucking. Over time, that might mean that you're doing less trucking, and that would mean that you're moving less containers. Or you aren't, if you're the trucking company, you might not be able to get as many moves in a day. You might have to hire more people to do the same amount of work. Those costs add up, and over time they make you less competitive, and they will have very real economic costs.
The future of Oakland, the economic engine of Northern California, the jewel of the Bay Area, is the Port of Oakland, supporting thousands and thousands of jobs that are good paying jobs. The Toyota Group did a study of slow growth, moderate growth, and strong growth at the Port of Oakland over the next 40 years. Even under the slow growth scenario, we are out of space come 2050. Under the moderate or strong growth scenarios, we are running out of space on waterfront property for maritime purposes as soon as 2030. In just 10 years, we're going to be out of space on the waterfront under a very moderate or strong growth scenario. This is extremely concerning, and I want to bring to your attention right now that there is a memo going throughout the industry advising vessel lines and terminal operators to get ready to start making plans to bypass Oakland if there's a stadium there. And we want you to do everything you can to protect this port.
You have here is the turning basin. It's another key aspect of the working port. Behind me is the over 70% of the cargo that's moved through the port, and it relies on this turning basin for the ships to come in and out. This turning basin must stay viable for the future of the port. The larger ships that are going to come here need to have a upgraded turning basin. It needs to be kept constantly dredged and enlarged to allow for these ships to be able to come in.
So the larger your ships get in a constrained turning basin, the less flexibility you have to have that ship come in and do business here. It has a very small margin of error. It requires a lot of skill to turn that ship. So as you get bigger and you've got to that place where the turning basin is constrained, you need to bring more assets. You need additional tugs. You need a second pilot. Those pilots bring on additional computing resources, so they have additional displays in the bridge of the ship, so they have additional GPS controls. They have specific restrictions placed on them by the Coast Guard on time of day, swell, the ebb or flow of the tide, and wind. The good news is the average size vessel is not taxing the turning basin
right now. So we can accommodate a lot of vessels during daylight hours that are large. But that will not be the case forever as average ships sizes continue to increase, as more of the largest ships cascade back into the Pacific out of the Atlantic trade, as they inevitably will. So we know we're going to have additional stressors on the turning basin. We know we're going to have to expand it in order to accommodate future generations of ships. You know, this will be an evaluation of how you can expand the turning basin, what makes sense, and working with the pilots and with the wharfingers at the Port of Oakland and the Corps of Engineers to make accommodations about what that looks like. The preliminary understanding is that it will take at least 10 acres off the southwest corner of Howard Terminal to accommodate one of the potential designs for that turning basin.
You know, the Howard Terminal site is it's only 50 acres, and it's in a choke point of trucking lanes, railroad, and shipping. We need this area. It turns around 100,000 containers a year. This site versus the Colosseum, which has already had its environmental review, it has stadium on it already. It's ready to go tomorrow. You could build tomorrow. It's 3 times as large. You could have 3 times the housing, 3 times the hotel, and 3 times the stadium. It's next to all major transportation, like BART. It's less than a quarter mile away from the Colosseum. Here, the nearest BART station's a mile away. And there's no way for public to walk here currently with the current infrastructure. There, you're right next to the freeway, you're right next to the airport, you're right next to Amtrak. The roads were widened in the 60s just for game day traffic. It's the ideal location for a stadium and development for Oakland. Yet, this land grab by the Fisher family is designed to maximize the amount of land that they can get in Oakland. They want to build here, they want to build condos, it'll run the businesses out, and as the businesses leave, the land will be vacant. Well, hey, let's build some more development. If we let this happen, it's a domino effect. The dominoes will fall on the port. The port will be run out of here. Currently, there's no proposal that I've seen that shows any kind of overpasses, easements, or parking that would allow for Oakland A's game day traffic, residential traffic, and hotel visitors to get in and out of this area without impeding the port traffic. Our overweight trucking lanes run right adjacent to Howard Terminal. The railroad runs right adjacent to Howard Terminal. And if you can't have these key transportation routes in and out of the port, including our one overpass, the Adeline overpass down the street, if you can't have this, then you're not going to have optimal conditions for business. And this business is all about running at the highest rate possible, getting your goods in and out as fast as possible. That's what this business is about. If our productivity is hindered in any way, the shippers are going to look elsewhere to ship their goods in and out of here.
My name is Brother Derek Muhammad, West Oakland resident and member of Local 10. By definition, gentrification is the process of neighborhood change that includes economic change in a historically disinvested neighborhood by means of developing real estate that conforms to the standards of more affluent people. New higher income residents moving in, as well as demographic change, not only in terms of income level, but also in terms of changes in the education level and racial makeup of the residents. So when more affluent people move in, the value of a thing, the price of a thing increases, making it more unaffordable for the people who are already there to remain. And that's what West Oakland and now East Oakland is being confronted with. I want to say that the black community, brothers and sisters, is under siege. And we're under siege by forces that would like to drive us out. And I believe that these forces are emanating from City Hall, from real estate development corporations, and from the police department, who will work in tandem to drive black people out of Oakland, California. That's something we got to deal with. Now, this project that's being proposed for Howard Terminal represents the uprooting of the black community of West Oakland through that process called gentrification. Ask yourself, why are they building a light rail down East 14th Street? Did any of you ask for that? And what will happen to the businesses once that light rail is in? The same thing that happened to 7th Street when they built the post office and the BART down there. A pushing out of the residents who are already there. Now, I also oppose this project because the project has the great potential to initiate the deindustrialization of a key urban center. Beginning in the 1970s and in the 1980s, we saw the deindustrialization of urban centers like Detroit, which, by the way, was one of the richest cities, not just in America, but in the whole world. Look at it now. We saw the deindustrialization of Pittsburgh, of Chicago, of Philadelphia, South Los Angeles, and even Oakland, California. We saw the decimation of manufacturing, warehouse jobs, factory jobs, and subsequent to that, beginning in 1984, 1985, 1986, we saw the introduction of crack cocaine in these urban centers. And that produced an economy predicated on drugs, whereby the drug business became the primary means of employment, replacing an economy based on industry. We suffered from that. Black families were annihilated from that. And if you don't have a family, you don't have a community. And so we can't go back to that, brothers and sisters. And with the help of God, we ain't going back to that. And so it's time to close ranks. It's time to start pushing back, because our future depends on it.
I mean, the impact to the Port of Oakland, to the seaport of Oakland, will be major. The Port of Oakland is currently the third busiest port on the West Coast. It is representative of heavy industry. And we think that when you place multi-million-dollar housing units adjacent to that kind of industry, you subject the industry to a myriad of complaints from neighbors. And so when we risk what is called deindustrialization, then the impact is immeasurable. Currently, there are about 28,000 jobs that are generated from the seaport. And so all of those jobs will be at risk. 28,000 jobs represents 28,000 families, and that's a huge problem. People need a job, and I get that. And what's being promoted is 6,000 jobs. But the reality is the construction jobs, the couple of thousand construction jobs, are going to go to the individuals who are already members of the trade organizations. The trade organizations in this area do not have a history of recruiting in the black neighborhoods of West Oakland or East Oakland. So the question is, how will you get a temporary construction job on a union project if you're not a member of the union? So that's question number one, and that's something for the people who are talking about jobs for the community to consider. You're not going to get a job unless you're in the union, and the union doesn't recruit in the ghetto, all right? The number two, service jobs, janitorial jobs, vendor jobs. Those jobs have already been promised to the current workforce, okay? So the workforce that is at the East Oakland location have been already guaranteed their job at the new location. So how many jobs did that leave for the community of West Oakland? It's another question for you to consider. So too many games are being played, and the historically marginalized, oppressed, rejected, dejected black community is being enticed to support this project because they're being told that they're going to get jobs. And that is a misleading of the people here. And so these are things that we are raising, and we want to continue to push this and continue to wake the people up.
You know, in the context of what this project means for the future of the Port of Oakland and whether or not it will grow, this is a real soul-searching moment for the port. They need to decide, am I going to be creating the circumstances in which I can grow over the next 2 or 3 decades or not? It's not enough to say that you're preserving the amount of cargo that we have now. We've already invested for the next 10 years. That doesn't count for the fact that the Port of Oakland is sitting on $1 billion of existing revenue bond debt for the infrastructure that we already have. So if you're putting in this project and you're not doing it in the context of what is the port that I want to have 20 years from now, you're choking growth at the port. And if you're choking growth at the port now, there is no way. The amount of money that we're going to need to reinvest in the equipment of tomorrow is going to be staggering. What do I want to do here? Do I want to have the capacity for growth built into my system, or do I want to cap my ability to grow? And once you cap your ability to grow, you're not going to be investing in the Port of Oakland much longer.
They're real estate developers. I mean, that's the bottom line. They're real estate developers first, and a baseball franchise second. They want to make money. That's what this whole thing is about. It's not about winning championships. It's not about playing baseball. It's about developing land, making money at the expense of everybody else.
There's a lot of irony in this proposal. It takes an asset that any city and municipality would really die to have, which is driving a middle class and blue collar labor force that creates massive amounts of wealth across an entire region. And it's choosing to put that at risk for concentrated wealth in the hands of a few that creates a whole bunch of self-serving service level jobs to support it in the restaurant industry. You're taking skilled jobs that are among the highest paid blue collar unionized workforce jobs in North America, and Port of Oakland is a economic asset that doesn't do that. It doesn't concentrate wealth at the top or the bottom. It's very democratic in the way that it works. It spreads wealth throughout the region, and it takes people from all different sorts of life, from unskilled labor to skilled labor to very, very highly specialized corporate roles. They're all there. It's a very integrated network of the supply chain, and it requires a fair amount of public investment, but again, it pays back in $280 million a year in state and local taxes, plus billions of dollars in income for a whole host of different jobs. But to sacrifice that for a project like this, that again concentrates wealth and creates
a whole host of just very basic service level jobs. As important as those jobs might be, it doesn't create the same level of overall economic value for the region.
Let me just run this down real quick to you. The A's explored the possibility of moving to San Jose. Major League Baseball said no. They explored moving to Fremont. Baseball said no. Then they wanted to go to Chinatown near Laney College. That was stopped by the community of Chinatown and also Peralta School District. The former owner of the Oakland A's, Lew Wolf, when this proposal of moving to the Port of Oakland, you know what Lew Wolf said? It's not a viable idea. It's not a viable idea. I'm not making this up. It's not viable. And he was right. This is a land grab. First of all, let me tell you where things are at. The Oakland A's and the city of Oakland leadership haven't heard from us. That's where things are at. This is far from a done deal. Nothing has been approved. You have to understand that big money controls the narrative on the news. The A's want you to think that this train cannot be stopped. We can stop it, and it starts here. Everyone should sign those petitions. We need to have a town hall meeting where the Oakland A's can answer questions and stop playing games. We also need to have the city council to answer questions. This is our tax dollars we're talking about.
Thank you all for coming. I see a few of my union sisters out. Can you guys all come to the front? Everybody see us? And Brother Bruce, come on up here. Gennaro. This is our workforce. And I just wanted you to see the faces and look at the people. These are the people that the Fisher family is trying to unemploy. These are the people that work side by side with me every day. People, we waited 15 years to get this job. 15 years. And we all signed up in 1999. We are Class B members now, but it was a long time coming, and I'll tell you people, it was worth the wait. This is the best job. A black woman, a woman period. I wouldn't care if you was green. This is the best job that you could get as a woman. Okay, in this community, and a lot more of us would live here if we could afford it. But we got millionaires coming into our community, stealing land, building stuff. Why would I want you to build another house or another condo that I can't afford, that she can't afford, that you can't afford? We cannot afford to even live here. Look at the homeless population. We already fighting that. And you want to build something else that they can't have either? No, thank you. Tell the Fisher family, pack it up, settle with the wealth they have, and let the people of Oakland have their land. Thank you all.
Mr. Fisher, if you think that you can come into Oakland and steal our property, pull a hood over our heads, and tell us to stand by and leave you alone, you got another thing coming there, homie. He's so interested in Oakland that he doesn't have not even one of his properties in Oakland. There's not a Gap, there's not an Old Navy, but Banana Republic, his signature store. Not a single store is in Oakland, and he's so concerned about Oakland that he don't have none of his properties here. That's no concern. His concern is making all that money by stealing the land out here in East Oakland and stealing the land over there in West Oakland. If you want to do something, Mr. Fisher, take your money and make it work in the city of Oakland. Invest in us, because you want us to invest in you. Okay? Make us part of your property. Support us so we can support you. We love the A's. We love them right where they're at. Right where they're at. I love that stadium. I've caught many foul balls over there. okay? But when you talk about moving downtown and interrupting my work, now me and you gotta talk, okay? And it's not gonna be nice because I love my job and I love what it represents. And I'm not gonna give it up easily. And Oakland is not for sale by any means. We do not give in to the billionaire's dream of owning all of Oakland, especially the waterfront. You want to come down to the waterfront? I'll remind you of 1934. There was some thugs that wanted to come down to the waterfront. What happened? You had a general strike and they got handled. And guess what? The ILWU was born. You want us to be born again? Come on down and try it. We got something for you.
I have pride in Oakland. Can you say pride? Can you say pride? I have pride living in Oakland, but I'm not proud of our politicians. Our politicians are being bought by billionaires, 70% homelessness. They drive up to their big houses in the hills, right past Tent City. They try to destroy our ILWU union, predominantly black union, some of the greatest paying jobs in California and in the United States. Are we gonna stand for that? What are we gonna do? Do you have pride? Vote. Are you proud of your elected officials? Then vote they asses out. God bless America. Thank you.
Because every time you have a situation that's not economically viable for the citizens in whatever town or city or county or state that you're talking about, it always disproportionately affects negatively members of that community that are black and brown, that are minority. This is a repetitive thing that we see happening over and over and over and over again. To my ILWU brothers and sisters, I was raised what they call a longshore baby. My father, fortunately, got the opportunity to be a longshoreman. I'm a third generation longshoreman. That port, the Port of Oakland, built lives for families like mine and families of those brothers and sisters who built the ILWU. The ILWU Local 10 right now is roughly 76% black. Okay? This is the only place in the country, one of the only places in the country where you have an opportunity like that for black and brown citizens, to where if you are a black member of the ILWU Local 10, you earn the same as a white member. Okay? If you are a woman member of the ILWU Local 10, you earn the same as a man. Okay? If you are a black woman, you earn the same as a white woman. Okay? If you're a transgender woman, you earn the same as anybody else on the waterfront. There is no differences. There's no discrimination. This town right here, Oakland, California, has a lot to do with the ability of the ILWU to build over the years, because this is a union town. We need to keep this a union town. The biggest threat to a union town is a greedy billionaire. A billionaire that not only wants this land across the street here to build condos on and profitize off of, but also the public land on the waterfront where we work. An area that provides good union-paying jobs for minorities in our city. What kind of jobs is a ballpark gonna offer? They're gonna offer low-wage, minimum wage paying jobs. So the people who at the stadium won't even be able to afford to go to the game on their day off. Will the people that work at the proposed Oakland A Stadium downtown, will they be able to afford property in Oakland? They'll be getting off work, traveling to somewhere far where they live, where they can afford to live. That is not economically viable for this city. It's not economically viable for our citizens, and it damn sure is not economically viable for all of those people you see living in tents under the bridge, under freeways, on the side of the road. It is not economically viable for this area. It's not economically viable for the ILWU, and we are not going to stand by and let them do this criminal act to this community. Thank you, brothers and sisters.